And we're live.
Thank you. Ms. Sage, do you have the time?
Yes, I've still got 2 more minutes.
Okay, thank you. 2. I've got 7 o'clock already. We're getting further apart.
Okay, I have 7 o'clock, Mayor Foxton. She's on the phone.
Good evening and welcome to the regular council meeting on Monday, March 28th. Township council meetings are currently being held electronically. Members of the public have been provided with the following methods to watch and participate in this open meeting electronically. Watch the live stream by accessing the meeting on the township's YouTube page. Or members of the public interested in speaking to any items were able to submit the request in writing to the clerk's division. A link and telephone number has been provided to those who registered before the registration deadline. And finally, members of the public interested in commenting on a particular item were invited to submit written comments to the clerk's division that were provided to the mayor and council prior to the meeting and will form part of the public record. I'd now like to call the meeting to order and ask for approval of the agenda, please.
So moved by Councillor Rolleman and seconded by Councillor Gillespie that council adopt the March 28th, 2022 regular council agenda as presented. Councillor Rolleman?
Yes.
Councillor Osner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
And Mayor Foxton?
Yes,
That carries.
thank you. Next, I'd like to do the Indigenous Territory Acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the land on which we gather today is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe and Mutual people. We acknowledge the enduring presence of the Indigenous people with whom we share the land today, their achievements and their contributions to our community. We offer this acknowledgement as an act of reconciliation between Indigenous and non-Indigenous people of Canada. I'd now like to take a moment to reflect on what has been, what we are learning today, and what we hope to see for our futures together. Thank you. Next, I'd ask, is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof? Seeing none. There's no presentation. Delegation from Ann Crow, the Grand Watershed Trails Network regarding an annual update. This is a wonderful presentation. I think you'll all be impressed. Welcome, Ann.
Well, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I have a presentation. Can you share that?
Staff, why don't you share the presentation, please? Cynthia, do you have the presentation? There we go. Thank you.
There we go. Okay, thank you. Okay, so it's a pleasure to come before council again. I believe it was about 5 years ago that I made a presentation when we were just beginning this project. Next slide, please. So the Grand Watershed Trails Network, the concept is more than just about creating a trail the length of the Grand River, although that's part of it. And the river itself is a major part of our trail network. It's also about using the trails to bring people to the culture, the heritage, the nature in the Grand Watershed. The watershed is enormous. It goes right the way through southern Ontario, from Dundalk all the way down to Lake Erie. And so the plan is to include new and existing land and water trails to create a unique recreational experience for people who live in this area, as well as people coming from outside the area. And we want at least one trail to be inclusive, to be for biking and hiking, and that's accessible to everybody. Next slide, please. So we've come up with a proposed route that goes cycling and hiking, that goes all the way from Dundalk to Lake Erie. And this is a screenshot of the main map. The little blue circles are all the paddling access points. So you can see there's lots of places you can get onto the river. And the red circles are warning signs, mainly dams that warn you that you have to portage for safety. Next slide. So we're in the process now of going to the various municipalities to consult about our proposed main trail. So the first section goes from Dundalk down to Bellwood Lake. And you can see you can only really put your canoe in the water at Luther Marsh and at Bellwood Lake. There's only a tiny section of the green is multi-use trail, which is the Upper Grand Trailway. And there's a very short section of trail that actually it's a rail trail that goes all the way from Orangeville to Owen Sound. But at this point, it needs upgrading, although I believe they're about to start upgrading it. So really at this point, you can't ride it, you can only hike it, but hopefully one day you'll be able to take the Grand Trails and go all the way to Owen Sound. So mainly in this section, it's on roads. The gray is gravel road, the black is paved road, and the little orange sections are warnings that this is a highway or a very busy road. So it crosses a couple of busy roads. Next slide, please. From Bellwood Lake, we're following the Trans-Canada Trail, which takes the Elora Cataract Trailway, which goes all the way to Forks of the Credit. It's a gorgeous trail that goes right the way through Fergus and Elora. And then from Elora, they have an on-road trail called the Cottontail Road Trail, which takes very quiet roads down to the Kissing Bridge Trailway. And there's several places where you can canoe, especially in the early part of the year when the water levels are high. Next slide, please. So the real question in the region of Waterloo is, how do we get from West Montrose to the Cambridge to Paris rail trail? So next slide, please. There were really two candidates for a trail. I'm really a big fan of the Walter Bean Trail, which is supposed to be a multi-use trail all the way from West Montrose to Cambridge through Waterloo region. But unfortunately, Woolwich has decided to make their section hiking only using the Grand Valley Trail. And Kitchener has some issues with private property, and some of it needs upgrading and some of it's washed out. So it's really not an option at this time. So we've decided to take the route of the Trans-Canada Trail, and the advantages there is it goes through St. Jacobs, it goes through Waterloo, Kitchener, and then of course in Cambridge, the Walter Bean Trail and the Trans-Canada are one and the same, so it's not really an issue. So we've talked to Waterloo and Kitchener and Cambridge. Next slide, please. And Waterloo suggested that we do a loop so that we can go to Rim Park, which is part of the Walter Bean Trail. And Cambridge suggested a loop which takes us up the Speed River. And a couple of years ago, I did a cycling trip with Ontario by Bike, which went from Guelph along the Kissing Bridge Trailway through Waterloo region, up the Speed River Trail, and then on roads back to Guelph. So that's the route that they did, which is now part of Guelph's master plan, Trails master plan, is to get a on-road cycling route from Guelph down to Hespeler, and to upgrade the connection between Guelph and the Kissing Bridge Trailway to make it more cycling friendly. And one more slide of Waterloo region. If we could finish the Walter Bean Trail, I think we would have a phenomenal set of cycling routes in Waterloo region for locals and for tourists. And on my to-do list, at some point, I'd love to do a route through the townships, which would take in, Erie, New Dundee, St. Agatha, Wellesley, and get you back up to Wallenstein. So that's still on my to-do list, but I'd be happy to take suggestions for a good cycling route, because obviously there's no multi-use trails that would have to be on road. Next slide. So from Waterloo region, it's fairly straightforward. That's Cambridge to Paris Rail Trail, which I'm sure you're aware of, and the SC Johnson into Brantford. And then Brantford and Brant County suggested that we do a loop. So it goes along both sides of the Grand River through Brantford, which is great. And the next section is the final section, which gets you, next slide, please. It gets you all the way down to Lake Erie. As you can see, that orange section is Highway 54. That's not the greatest place to cycle, but I believe they're looking at upgrading it with some cycling facilities. We would like to do a route through Six Nations, but obviously we have had some discussions with Six Nations, and obviously we're waiting for them to decide if they want that and what the route would be through their territory, obviously. And then down at Lake Erie, Haldeman has suggested a loop, which I don't have the coordinates for yet. And they suggested going down both sides of the river from Dunville, because there's a bridge at Dunville, and then you can get to the lake on either side of the river. So that's the proposed route. Next slide. I just wanted to put this up just to give you a little bit of a larger vision for what this represents. The red, so this is a screenshot from the Waterfront Trail, and the red is the Waterfront Trail. The blue is the Grand River, and you can see we go right through the middle of southwestern Ontario. And the black are all the existing rail trails that would connect us with the Waterfront Trail. So I think we become a really important connector in terms of cycling tourism in Ontario. When you add our route into the Waterfront Trail, there's numerous multi-day loops. Next slide, please. The other thing that we've done, we got a Trillium grant to upgrade our website. So this is our new website, which is www.grandtrails.ca. And the routes are all the maps on interactive maps. Next slide. And so this is just a screenshot of the interactive map in North Dumfries. And you can see that various amenities are on the map. And I clicked on the little knife and fork down by the Dixon Wilderness area, and that's the Willowbold Farm Distillery and Brewery. So that if you click on the little circles, then you get information about exactly what it is, what the website is, where it is, what the phone number is. So this will be really useful for people who are coming to the area. And you can zoom right in and look at all the amenities. I would like to put the canoe access points for the Nith on at some point, but at this point, there isn't really adequate safety information. The Grand River Conservation Authority has information on the Grand. And so we would need to upgrade that information in order to really release that to the public. Next slide. So anyway, we're consulting with all the municipalities all the way up and down the river. We're introducing people to our new website, and we're hoping to continue to connect with staff, municipal staff, to keep up to date when, areas of the trail are closed or under construction, or if you have new trails that you would like to add to the route. And I think the next slide is the last slide. Yeah, so any questions?
Cynthia, can you take down the presentation, please, so I can see? I don't see any right now, and you did an amazing job. And I was fortunate enough to get on. I couldn't go on to your presentation that day, but I did see the presentation, and the pictures all the way down. So you rode a lot out of the trails and took the pictures, didn't you? You and your husband.
Yeah, I decided I'm really a concrete thinker. So in order to do this, I decided I had to get out there and get on the trail. So I hiked or biked the entire Grand Valley Trail. And then in the process, we kind of picked up the Trans-Canada Trail. And I just looked at all the candidates and took photos along the way. Yes, so a lot of it is mine. Some of it's from Ontario by bike and other people. But yeah, a lot of it was mine.
Absolutely stunning. And
Oh,
I
thank
think
you.
my council members or staff want to go onto their website and look at it. You would be amazed at what you see. And we live in such a beautiful area. I see no questions. Can I have the motion, please, Ms. Sage?
Moved by Councillor Ossner and seconded by Councillor Gillespie that the delegation from Ann Crow, Chair of the Grand Watershed Trails Network, be received with thanks, and that a copy of the delegation's presentation be forwarded to the Leisure and Lifestyle Advisory Committee and the Township's Leisure Master Plan Consultant further information, and that staff include on the Township website the link to the Grand Watershed Trails Network website. Councillor Rowland?
Yes.
Councillor Ossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
And Mayor Foxton?
Yes. Now,
Okay.
Ann, do you have Karen Winter's contact information? Because she would probably be your resource.
Karen Winters? No, but I think I do actually. What's her position?
She is, what's your title now, Karen?
And Director of Leisure and Community Services.
Okay. I will connect, and I'm happy to come and talk to your committee or your staff at any time.
Thank you so much, Ann. You've done a great job. Well done.
Well, thank you for your interest.
And next we have the Committee of the Whole reports. Is there anyone that wants us to discuss anything before we bring the motion forward? And you do not have to read it in its entirety, Ms. Sage, unless we had an extra hour that you could read it all. I see no hands. Can I please have the motion?
So moved by Councillor Gillespie and seconded by Councillor Ossner. The council adopt the following recommendations as listed in 8.1.1A through to J on the agenda as presented by Committee of the Whole dated March 14th, 2022. Those items being report number FIN-08-2022, the 2021 Audit Engagement Planning Report as presented. Report number FIN-09-2022, the 2022 Council Remuneration and Expenses Report as presented. Report number FIN-10-2022, the Community Grants Allocation Program for 2022 as presented. Report FIN-11-2022, Update to Tangible Capital Asset Policy as presented. Report number FIN-12-2022, the 2020 Financial Information Return Key Indicators as presented. Report number FIN-13-2022, the 2021 Capital Projects Not Completed until 2022 as presented. Report REC-05-2022, Request for Quote Award for the Lighting Engineer Services for Schmidt Park and Victoria Park as presented. Report CLK-05-2022, Follow-up Report for the Proposed Mobile Food Vendor Bylaw as presented. Report Bylaw-01-2022, Discussion for the Road Use Bylaw as presented. Report FD-03-2022, the Fire Department Incident Response Summary for January, February of 2022 as presented as well. Councillor Rowland?
Yes.
Councillor Ossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
And Mayor Foxton?
Yes.
That carries.
Thank you. And the next motion we have are the regular council minutes from February 22nd and the Committee of the Whole minutes from March 14th. Could I have that motion, please?
Moved by Councillor Ossner, seconded by Councillor Rowland, that council approve the following minutes. Regular council meeting minutes dated February 22nd, 2022, and Committee of the Whole meeting minutes dated February 14th, 2022. Councillor Rowland?
Yes.
Councillor Ossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
And Mayor Foxton?
Yes.
That carries.
Thank you. And next we have item 9.1, which is the correspondence from Mary Ann Young, Paul Westacott, Karen Scott Booth, and the NDCA North Dumfries Conservation Alliance requesting council enact an interim control bylaw. And the motion, if you'll read the motion out, Ms. Sage. Councillor Osmer, do you want to ask a question first, or do you want to hear the motion?
I was just scratching my hand. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Let's hear the motion first and see if there's any questions after that, Ms. Sage.
Moved by Councillor Gillespie and seconded by Councillor Rowland, that the email correspondence from the North Dumfries Conservation Alliance dated February 28th, 2022 be received, and that the correspondence be referred to staff and Township Legal Counsel for review and the preparation of a report to Council on the matter of an interim control bylaw and its implications.
Is there any questions or comments? Seeing none, can I have the motion, please? The call for the motion and vote.
Councillor Rowland,
Yes.
Councillor Rossner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie,
Yes.
and Mayor Foxton.
Yes.
That carries.
Thank you. And next is report number CAO-11-2022, Enbridge Gas, Inc. Franchise Agreement Renewal. And I believe we have Brian Lenny, Marie Costello, and Nicole Fernandez are in attendance to answer any questions. Are there any questions, councillors? I don't see any. So can I have the motion, please?
So moved by Councillor McCreary and seconded by Councillor Rowland, that CAO report number 11-2022 be received, and that Council approve the resolution included as attachment number 1 to this report, the resolution endorsing a draft bylaw and gas franchise agreement between the Township and Enbridge Gas Incorporated for renewal of Enbridge's franchise for gas services in the Township, and that Council give first and second reading to the draft franchise agreement bylaw included as attachment number 2, which will be put before the Ontario Energy Board for approval, and that the Mayor and Township Clerk be authorized to sign such documents as are necessary to facilitate Enbridge's application to the OEB in a form satisfactory to the Chief Administrative Officer and Township Legal Counsel, and that once the OEB approval is received, the bylaw be placed on the future Council agenda for final reading and enactment. Councillor Rowland,
Yes.
Councillor Rossner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie,
Yes.
and Mayor Foxton.
Yes.
That carries.
And report number clerk 06-2022, restricted acts of council, lame duck, and delegation of responsibility. So does anybody have any questions? So for clarification, Ms. Sage, this means that that we cannot put in our nominations as if we're running it out until August 19th. Is that correct?
So no, nomination period starts on May the 2nd, but because nomination day closes on
Oh, it starts May 2nd, but it closes August 19th.
that's the date that it closes, so that's when a lame duck could take effect.
Right, and that's at 2 o'clock on that day?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay. Are there any other questions, ladies and gentlemen? Can I have the motion, please?
So moved by Councillor Gillespie and seconded by Councillor Rowland, that CLK report number 06-2022 be received, and that Council enact bylaw number 3309-2022, being a bylaw to delegate Council's authority as per section 275 subsection 6 of the Municipal Act to the Chief Administrative Officer for the period of August 19th, 2022 to October 24th, 2022, and October 24th, 2022 to November 14th, 2022, to A, make any disposition of any real or personal property of the municipality outside the most recent budget adopted by Council that has a value exceeding $50,000 at the time of disposal. B, make any expenditures or incur any other liability outside the most recent budget adopted by Council, which exceeds $50,000. Have authority to hire or dismiss any employee or to appoint or remove from office any officer of the municipality with the Township of North Dumfries. And that this bylaw shall only come into force in the event when determined by the clerk that less than 75% of the current members of council will be returning to sit on the new council after nomination day, which is August 19th, 2022, or after election day, October 24th, 2022. Councillor
Any
Rowland?
questions, councillors? Don't see any questions. Go ahead.
Councillor Rowland?
Yes.
Councillor Rossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
And Mayor Foxton?
Yes.
That carries.
Thank you. And next we have the election recount policy, please. Any questions? Seeing none, the motion, please.
So moved by Councillor Gillespie and seconded by Councillor McCreary that CLK report number 07-2022 be received and that council enact bylaw number 3310-22 being a bylaw to adopt a recount policy for the 2022 municipal election. Councillor Rowland,
Yes.
Councillor Rossner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie,
Yes.
and Mayor Foxton.
Yes,
That carries.
thank you. And next is the use of corporate resources for municipal election purposes policy. Any questions? Seeing none, go ahead, Ms. Sage.
Moved by Councillor Gillespie and seconded by Councillor Rowland that CLK report number 08-2022 be received and that council adopt the use of corporate resources for municipal election purposes policy for the 2022 municipal election. Councillor Rowland,
Yes.
Councillor Rossner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie,
Yes.
and Mayor Foxton.
Yes.
That carries.
And next is the proposed set fines for election sign bylaw. As some of you may have heard, the region has passed a bylaw where there'll be no signs on regional roads at all anymore. So that may be more difficult for the town of wards 3 and 4 as well, because they cannot, it's basically personal property now. I have Councillor Rowland first and then Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On page 91 of the report, it talks about the 8 different items in question that are fines to be levied for. The one thing I've had comments on in the past is item number 4 of the location of an election sign within 15 meters of an intersection. Some people have indicated their actual lots are only 15 meters wide, so they can't even put an election sign on their front lawn if they're adjacent to an intersection. And now, in light of the fact that we can't put signs on regional roads, I'm wondering if there's any ability to change that distance and make it so that if someone's on a corner lot, they could actually have an election sign on their front lawn. For example, Councillor Osner could not have a sign on his front lawn because he's right in an intersection. So I'm just wondering, is there any leeway or any way we can re-examine that part of the policy?
Who would like to respond? CEO McNeely?
So, Madam Mayor, through to Councillor Rowland, this would be within a boulevard portion. It would not be within the front yard of the residence.
Right, so it does not affect a person's property, correct, CEO McNeely?
That's correct. So if we take a corner lot as an example, if they were outside of the boulevard, then they would be able to put the sign within the boundaries of the private portion of their property. This regulation, as defined, is within the municipal boulevard in proximity to the intersection.
Councillor Rowland, you have a question? Continuous question?
Well, yeah, because it just seems if you look at number 3 that you can't put a sign within 2 meters of the travel portion of the road. So that means you already can't put a sign on the boulevard. So I'm not sure how 3 and 4, I assumed you couldn't put it on the boulevard already. So I'm not sure about why 4 is necessary then.
So they're speaking to two different aspects. I can put it within the boulevard beyond the 15 meters of the intersection, but I just can't then in that situation put it any closer than 3 meters from the travel portion of the road. It's two different thought processes. One is in relationship to an intersection, and the other is elsewhere on the municipal boulevard, away from the intersection. I just can't put the sign within 2 or 3 meters of the travel portion of the road.
And that, okay, Councillor Austin.
Thank you. So like to be clear, as Councillor Rowland said, I was going to use my property as an example. I have between the sidewalk and my house, I have a small patch, like a small area of grass. Am I okay to put it there? Can I put it on anybody's lawn as long as it's not on municipal property? Is like, like for example, on Northumberland Street where the apartment buildings are. If they allow me to put it on their property, is that okay? Like the region's fine with that?
CEO McNeely?
So if we use 180 Northumberland as an example, yes, you can put it on that that lot where the apartment is, provided it's within the boundaries of that property. So you would not be able to put it between the sidewalk and the curb because that's part of the regional road allowance, and the region's not allowing any signage within the boundaries of a regional road. But generally speaking, if you're about 18 inches offset from the sidewalk, you're on private property, and you would be able to put adjacent the regional road allowance within the boundaries of that apartment block land holding.
So
Okay,
if it's
because-
on private property, it's okay to put it on private property.
Yeah, my description, I just want to be clear of the definition of private property, because my assumption was that the townships and regions, et cetera, they own so many feet on either side of the road from the center of the road. And that, in my case, could encroach right onto my front lawn. Am I reading that incorrectly, or?
So, Madam Mayor, through to Councillor Oster, yes, a portion of the grassed area on the inland side of the sidewalk, in other words, close to your house, is still part of the municipal road allowance. I don't know exactly where the road allowance ends on that side and your private property starts, but generally speaking, about 18 inches inside from that sidewalk would be private property, and you would be able to put a sign on the private side at that location.
Okay, so then when it comes to regular boulevards, et cetera, you got to make sure you're on private property. You can't put it between the sidewalks and the roads. What about where I see, for example, out at Wrigley's Corners there in the ditches and stuff like that, that is no longer allowed?
That's correct. The region has amended their election signs as it relates to regional roads. So along Wrigley Road or at an intersection between two regional roads, there will not be allowed any signage to be put within the boundaries of the road allowance.
And one last question. There was no consideration in this bylaw to limit the amount of signs that can be placed around?
So what is before council tonight relates to the township sign bylaw. We have not made any changes. The questions you're asking are related to the regional bylaw. And I don't know what discussion occurred at the regional level as related to the amendments to the regional sign bylaw for municipal election signs.
Okay.
So
fine.
basically, the regional bylaw states that every sign must go on private property. So if one person is going to put 10 signs on his front lawn for different people, that's that individual's choice. But every sign must go on private property. Councilor Bowman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And just for clarification, the CEO said municipal election, but does this also apply to provincial and federal elections?
For the region, yes. And CEO McNeely, you're muted.
The regional bylaw speaks to all election signs, whether it be municipal, provincial, or federal. And obviously, we're going to be dealing with our first election coming up in June. And the regional bylaws in force and effect for that upcoming provincial bylaw.
I see no further questions. Can I have the motion, please, Ms. Sage?
Moved by Councillor Gillespie and seconded by Councillor Rollman that CLK report number 09-2022 be received, and that the proposed set fines for part 1 for the election sign bylaw number 2952-19 be approved, and that staff submit the proposed set fine part 1 for election sign bylaw number 2952-19 to the Ministry of Attorney General for approval. Councillor Roman,
Yes.
Councillor Rossner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie,
Yes.
and Mayor Foxton.
Yes,
That carries.
thank you. And next we have the report on administrative policy for hybrid council and committee meetings. Are there any questions? Councilor Roman.
Madam Mayor, I guess the question I have is if we go to a hybrid model and we get to a point where certain members of council never attend in person, but are always attending virtually, you know, from Florida or someplace, is there any sort of limitation on the number of times per year or per session of council that you're allowed to attend virtually, or is it just unlimited? You can attend every single meeting virtually. I'm just curious how that would work with regards to, you know, staff or council. Is there any sort of limitation on it? I'm just wondering if we've had that discussion.
Thank you, Councilor Roman. Same question I asked of CAO a few weeks ago. Go ahead, CAO McNeely. And you're on mute again.
Yes, there is a provision as to when a council member would be able to be excused from an in-person council session. I just have to quickly scroll down and find the section to draw your attention to it. All right, if you go to section 411, that's on page 3 of the draft policy. The way the section reads, the default position for all members of council is to actually attend in person. It then continues by saying there will be limited exceptions for in-person participation. And we have identified traveling for official business, illness or infirmary, or a health and safety reason. So that's where we tried to, for lack of a better term, scope when a member of council would not be available. So a health and safety issue could be, let's just pretend today was a really bad set of snowstorms and some members of the council that were at distance, it may not be safe for them to travel, and it gives them the opportunity to connect remote. If they've had a surgical procedure, they may be immune compromised for a period of time. We're still in a COVID setting. This would allow them to stay remote and yet participate actively as a full member of council. So the default position is attendance, and then one of those 3 reasons could be triggered for remote participation in a full manner of participation.
Okay, any other questions? CAO McNeely, what if someone had or claimed to have an extended illness?
So that would fall under that health and safety scenario. If they've got a medical reason why they cannot attend in person, then they would be able to exercise that provision.
But there's no provision to insist that council attend the whole meeting. So we couldn't have like someone attend for 10 minutes and leave, and the next meeting attend for 10 minutes and leave, as we've had in the past. And for a medical reason, because then they're not taking full participation. That's my concern, is if they attend a meeting, they have to do full participation.
The Municipal Act, and we've had a legal opinion on this, does not require a member of council to be present for 50+% of the meeting or the full meeting to be deemed to be accountable. At roll call, they are deemed then to be attending the council meeting.
Okay, question here is, this is where we differ from regional council, because we do roll call in certain situations. So it'll be also at the meeting, it'll be a closed session. We have roll call about 2-3 times. We do not do that here.
We do roll call at the beginning of this agenda, and later tonight when you go into in camera, there'll be roll call again.
Okay, so we won't really do it, the clerks just check. Correct? Okay.
Because we have
Because
to, we have to record who is present at those meetings when those agendas come forward.
But it's not, it doesn't, there's nothing to prevent a person from attending 10 minutes and leaving.
No, under any meeting scenario, forget the hybrid for a moment. At any council meeting, a member can be there for a portion of the meeting and then leave.
Okay. And I think that's a gap in the act. But anyways, any other questions? Seeing none, can I have the motion, please, Ms. Sage?
Moved by Councillor Gillespie and seconded by Councillor Roman that CLK report number 10-2022 be received and that council adopt the administrative policy for hybrid council and committee meetings. Councillor Roman,
Yes.
Councillor Rossner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie,
Yes.
and Mayor Foxton.
Yes.
That carries.
Thank you. Next, we have the farmers market event from Saturday. Saturdays only from May 28th to October 9th. Are there any questions? Seeing none, can I have the motion, please?
Moved by Councillor Gillespie and seconded by Councillor Roman that rec report number 06-2022 be received and that bylaw number 3308-2022 being a bylaw to temporarily close a portion of Church Street from Piper Street to William Street on Saturdays from May 28th to October 9th, 2022, between the hours of 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. to accommodate a farmers market event be enacted. Councillor Roman,
Yes.
Councillor Rossner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie,
Yes.
and Mayor Foxton.
Yes.
That carries.
Okay, next is correspondence. Does anybody want to select any of the correspondence? Sorry, guys, I have several. The first off, did we ever declare the Year of the Garden proclamation for the garden group in North Dumfries? Because I know they made the request several times. I can't recall if we did it. CEO McNeely?
Mayor Fox, in accordance with the procedural bylaw, we don't do proclamations. That being said, we are working with the Air Garden Club, and we are providing both promotional support to a number of their initiatives, as well as the township has undertaken certain programs in partnership with the Air Garden Club related, the North Dumfries Garden Club, with respect to the Year of the Garden.
Okay, thank you. The next one was from on page 169, Blue Mountain's response to the Housing Task Force report, which was quite good, and we may want to look at that and possibly sorry, just getting it back up. All right. Do you have it? It's on page 169. No. It's to deal with housing affordability, proposed by the province to address housing affordability. Background information analysis. Could maybe our staff look into that one and see if it's worth bringing forward for us to deal with as well?
So, Madam Mayor, there is a report coming to council on April the 11th. It is something that the area planning directors have been working on. It is not a joint report. However, there is commonality in some of the approaches or concerns that have been identified by the broader group. And it is, as I said, it's an item on the Development Services Committee agenda for April the 11th.
Okay, the next one I want to look at is on page 173, which is the Local Planning Tribunal. County of Oxford did a one in the tribunal. So council, someone can sit back, let council to make a decision. And then if they don't like your decision, then take you to the tribunal. County of Oxford set forth a motion stating you have to orally make a response to the situation or do a written submission And if you don't do one or the other, you cannot take the municipality to the tribunal. It was a very well-written motion, and I think we should look at that as well. And that's on page, as I said, 173. CO McNeely, I wouldn't mind us looking into that one as well. So that it's, because I mean, people can sit back, not say a word, we think everything's fine, make a decision, and then be taken to the tribunal for it. So in Oxford County, they've said, no, the person has to speak up and make a decision one way or another and state your case. Reliable, stable funding for mental health on page 246. I think that's another motion we could look at, have staff look at as well, please. And Robert, you're here, on page 255, the fighters one. There's some concerns about that. We have no concerns here. Is that correct, Robert, with the new? Because ours are all following the regulation anyways. Correct? You're still on mute.
Yes, Madam Mayor, that is correct.
Okay, so we won't touch that one. Oh, and on 258, there's a Mono Mills Ukraine support. Almost there, guys. And I didn't know if we wanted to do anything in regards to the Ukraine support as well. So maybe staff can look at that one as well, please, and bring something forward to council in the future, or if they think it's appropriate. The last one is actually the last two is on page 273 and 279. The roundabouts, are they necessary? So this is for discussion with council. Do we feel the roundabout at Dickey Settlement and Roseville Road are necessary? And I'll tell you why. With all the truck tracks and everything, roundabouts, people travel quickly through them. There's no stops. We have several trucks going on the Roseville Road and Dickey Settlement Road. It's only going to increase. And I think with the roundabout and speeds whipping through, I think we'll have more accidents than we do at present. But what do council think? Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I believe roundabouts are designed to alleviate a larger problem. When people are traveling on the road, speeds are quite quick anyway. Roundabouts are a part of Waterloo region. They're part of communities everywhere now because they keep traffic flowing without having the issues of a traffic lights. And I think that roundabouts, they're a good idea as long as they're designed with visibility. That is, I'm not like from the drawings that I can't tell what visibility is like, but I do believe that roundabouts they keep the flow of traffic going, and that's going to be a more beneficial result for that area. I don't know what the other options were for the area, but I think that roundabouts are a good idea. But again, as long as they're designed safely, and my assumption is the region would do that.
I find this one bizarre because it cuts off Dickey Settlement Road and leaves it as an isolated road that's cut off, and that makes no sense to me. And I think in that, since it's a three-way intersection, I thought the lights were working well, but that's okay. We'll go to other councilors. Councilor Gillespie.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As you know, I live right at a roundabout now, and I agree with Councillor Osner. If they're designed properly and big enough for trucks, they might work. I don't think that the one down near us is designed quite right. It's really tight for trucks, and trucks really don't like roundabouts, I've found out. And you should, like, the curbs are already wrecked at this one, and there's gravel spilt all over the place because the trucks do go really fast, but I find that they slow down really fast and then they gear up really fast. So it's incredibly noisy and not nice to live by.
Thank you for your honesty, Councillor Gillespie. Councillor Olman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess the one thing about roundabouts I like is that trucks are not sitting idling for a long period of time at red lights. So I mean, or vehicles in general. So I think it is better for the environment if trucks and vehicles keep moving. They're not sitting idling for a long period of time through the light process. So I think overall, most of the roundabouts have been pretty decent. I mean, Councillor Gillespie is correct. I've seen some of them are badly designed, but the one at Homer Watson comes to mind. But they've been re-engineering those and changing them, and they're adapting. They could just go to Europe and see what Europe does, but I guess they don't want to do that. They want to design it themselves. So we'll have to see what happens.
Councillor Ossner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just as an example, Franklin Boulevard, I don't know if anybody's traveled Franklin Boulevard from the 401 all the way down. Well, that's roundabout after roundabout after roundabout after roundabout. We have a client that is down in on Dundas Street. So every now and again after work, I go down Franklin to get to that client. I'm following a lot of trucks because that's an industrial area all back in there. And they seem to have it down to a science that when they come up to the roundabout, they put their four-ways on and they're harboring both lanes so that, because they have to get to the outside, and so the truck gets around without, because they cannot stay in one lane. The roundabouts are too small for them to stay in one lane, but they work it out. And maybe the spillover is if there's a certain area where there's a roundabout that trucks don't like, maybe you've alleviated the problem of having heavier truck traffic there. Maybe they will find another solution or another route. But as for the roundabouts, as Councillor Rolma said, nobody's sitting and idling. They are free flowing. They keep the traffic moving, and it's designed to stop congestion, because the whole reason they come up with these reports is we have a congested area, and it's going to alleviate that.
Thank you. Good discussion. And Councillor Gillespie, yours is a mess. I'm sorry. Yours is just, even I trying to get into your property is difficult. I'd like us to look at, take a closer look at the one at Dickey Settlement and Roseville Road, only because of what the design they have. And I would prefer they use Dickey Settlement. It's already built as an intersection like that, rather than coming way over and leaving the road for like a half a kilometer to dead end. But maybe we'll look at that later. Any other comments on correspondence? Seeing now, can we have the motion, please? And you do not have to read it in its entirety, Ms. Sage.
Moved by Councillor Gillespie and seconded by Councillor Roman, that council received the following items: 11.1.1, that's through to 11.1.19 as presented. Councillor Roman?
Yes.
Councillor Ossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
And Mayor Foxton?
Yes,
That carries.
thank you. Okay, and next we have the Leisure and Lifestyles Advisory Committee minutes dated January 19th. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, the motion, please.
Moved by Councillor McCreary and seconded by Councillor Roman, that council received the Leisure and Lifestyle Advisory Committee minutes dated January 19th, 2022. Councillor Roman?
Yes.
Councillor Ossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
And Mayor Foxton?
Yes,
That carries.
thank you. And next we have a motion to receive minutes. I don't think we ever get the Energy Plus Inc. minutes, do we? C.L. McNally, do we get the Energy Plus minutes?
No,
I
Energy
didn't think
Plus,
so.
Energy Plus hasn't shared their minutes.
Well, because it's a private board.
It is,
Yeah.
however, it's a public supported entity.
That's right. Well, we're not a public supported entity. It's the shareholders are the public, but you're right. So it is a private board, so we'll never get those minutes. Any questions about the minutes? Any of the minutes? Seeing none, can I have the motion, please?
Moved by Councillor McCreary and seconded by Councillor Rollman that Council received for the purposes of information the following items. The Region of Waterloo minutes dated January 26, 2022, and the Grand River Accessibility Advisory Committee minutes dated January 27th, 2022 and February 24th, 2022. Councillor Rollman?
Yes.
Councillor Rossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
And Mayor Foxton?
Yes, be interesting to see someone say no to one of those. Okay, other business? Is there any other business, ladies and gentlemen?
No.
And next, mayors and councilors reports. Anything to report? Okay, first and second readings of the bylaw, please. Is it first, second, and third? No, first and second, please.
So moved by Councillor Gillespie and seconded by Councillor Rollman that the following bylaws be given a first and second reading. Bylaw number 3305-22 being a bylaw to license, regulate, and govern mobile food vendors in the Township of North Dumfries. Bylaw number 3308-22 being a bylaw to temporarily close a portion of Church Street from Piper Street to William Street to facilitate the Here to There Market Event Incorporated Farmers Market. Bylaw number 3309-22 being a bylaw to delegate council's authority as per section 275 subsection 6 of the Municipal Act to the Chief Administrative Officer for the period of August 19th, 2022 to October 24th, 2022 and October 24th, 2022 to November 14th, 2022. Bylaw number 3310-22 being a bylaw to adopt a recount policy for the 2022 municipal election. Bylaw number 3311-22 being a bylaw to authorize a franchise agreement between the Corporation of the Township of North Dumfries and Enbridge Gas Incorporated. And bylaw number 3312-22 being a bylaw to amend the fees and charges bylaw 3294-21 to include licensing fees for food trucks. Councillor Rollman?
Yes.
Councillor Rossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
And Mayor Foxton?
Yes, and you do not have to read them individually for the third reading of the bylaws.
So moved by Councillor Ostner and seconded by Councillor McCreary that the following bylaws be taken as read a first and second time. Just to note that the only one not getting a third reading would be bylaw 3311-2022. All other bylaws are included as previously presented. Councillor Rollman?
Yes.
Councillor Ostner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
And Mayor Foxton?
Yes, yes,
That carried.
thank you. And the motion to go into closed.
So moved by Councillor Rollman, seconded by Councillor Ostner, that council move into a closed meeting session at 7:57 p.m. Under the Municipal Act, Section 239, subsection 2, subsection B and D, to discuss item 1, report CAO 12-2022, a work from home policy, labor relations or employee negotiations, Municipal Act, Section 239, subsection 2, subsection D, and item 2, report number CAO-13-2022, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. Municipal Act, Section 239, subsection 2, subsection B. Councillor Rollman?
Yes.
Councillor Ostner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
And Mayor Foxton?
Yes,
That carries.